Get ready for your unofficial dental hygiene podcast. These are the tales of two hygienists, one East Coast RDH and one West Coast hygienist. Listen as they tackle the profession of dental hygiene with humor and enthusiasm. Now, please join Michelle Strange and Andrew Johnston as they tell you a tale of two hygienists.
Listeners, welcome to another interview with the Tale of Two Hygienists.
Another
one. This is going to be an amazing one because I'm here with a dear old friend who has a great message, and she's kind of blushing-ish right now. So, listeners, this is my friend Cassandra Quick. Correct?
That's correct.
That is correct. So Cassandra and I grew up in a place called Adna, and Cassandra is going through a transition right now of life that I think that'd be very important to discuss, because in this day and age, we all need to become more open-minded, more accepting, but more important than that, I think more loving and understanding of different
more grace.
Yeah, showing more grace.
Others.
But the thing is, like, I want listeners and I want you as hygienists to understand that there's going to be someone that's sitting in your chair that might be different than you. And I want you to be able to accept them, love them, and still give them the same high-quality treatment that everyone deserves. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to have Cassandra on today because I feel like she's been, and she probably doesn't know this, and so sorry if I embarrass you, but she's been my go-to when we talk about transgender people. This is something is it ongoing?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean,
I love that you're up right now.
Standing.
You're just like, it's almost like you can't sit still. I think we're making this so uncomfortable for you.
Ongoing, yes, in that, until things get very different than they are now, when you're trans, it's always a thing. It's always going to be a thing. It's almost always going to come up at some point. Or someone doesn't bring it up, it's because they're uncomfortable, and then you can say, okay, you can ask whatever you want, and they're like, oh, God, thank goodness. Okay, what's the deal with it? And you're like, yeah, here, this. So it's ongoing. There's so many different parts of it. I mean, you can almost break it down to, legal transition, changed my name from... It's considered rude to ask people what their birth name, old name was. It's called dead naming. But for our purposes, I'll throw it out there. I was born Sam Brown 2 years ago. I legally changed my name. I've been using various different names for myself since I was, probably like 15, 17. But legally now, to the greater world, I officially became Cassandra in December 2014. And then 4 months ago, I changed my middle and last name.
So everything, you've changed all of it.
Yes. That's kind of a story in and of itself.
which I do want to talk about. That was one of the things I wanted to talk about was why you chose the names that you chose, and was it just a personal thing, or is this something that everyone goes through, that when they have to select a new name, a new identity with the name?
Because you could still be Sam, because there's plenty of Sams.
Be a Samantha.
Right. That is the trick. Well, besides that, every Samantha I've ever met has been a terrible person. So
it's like naming your child. Like, I won't name her Ashley because I've hated every Ashley I've ever known.
Right, exactly, that sort of thing.
Except for
our favorite podcast
except for my boss at work, our front desk person at work, and one of the dental assistants at work. Except
that
for
was just
three.
Throwing that out there. I don't really mean it. Sorry, we digress a lot.
We do.
No, it's fine. I could have, but that was kind of the thing. Is I wanted it to be a new name that was very decidedly on the side of the fence on which I sit, so that it couldn't be treated as I can just treat you as nothing happened, and just go by the old name and so on. Apparently, we'll get into this, but my being trans was a perennial conflict between my mother and I. I brought up wanting to change my name when I was like 16 or something, and she about had a meltdown. You don't like the name that I chose you? No. So it was...
That's just moms being moms.
Right. So it was...
Yeah,
that went on
Yeah.
at length.
So hold on. While we're kind of on this kind of tangent, let's talk a little bit about the childhood portion of it, because I feel like a lot of the world, a lot of society says, hey, you just decided to just be different one day, and then you just went and was different one day. When did you feel like you were noticing differences in yourself?
Early. Probably, I think 5 was the first time something was wonkadoodle.
5?
Yes.
I don't even remember if I was playing with what toy I was playing with at 5.
I think it's one of the few clear memories I have from then. My cousins, my older cousins, they loved to like do skits and whatnot. And for one of them, they needed an extra girl. There was
you were volunteering.
So I didn't know anything at the time. I was just like, okay, sure, whatever. So whole girl outfit. I was like, I kind of prefer this to my stuff. Which doesn't necessarily mean anything, but that's kind of the first indication. I'm like, okay, maybe something, at that age, some kids know at that age, they're like, hey, I'm a girl, whatever. Like, I didn't know what it was. I was just like, something's amiss here. Something's out of step with everyone else, I feel. And that just kind of snowballed over the years. In my interest, who I wanted to hang out with, and then when you get a little older, what your body starts doing things that you don't necessarily care for because you're like, hey, I want my body to be looking more like my female friends, and instead it's growing these freakish muscles and body hair and all these things, and you're like, no, this is gross and bad, and I don't want it. And so that's and that probably started I think 11, 13, and then it just kind of continued to snowball again to where the point in high school, it was kind of basically, at some point it became, I don't want to say obsession, but it was just kind of occupied most of what I was thinking about all the time, just this incongruency with what everybody else seems to think that I should be and be doing. And my senior year of high school, I quit football and wrestling to do cheerleading, and coaches for sports that I didn't even play flipped out about it. One of the strongest kids in the school is doing cheerleading. I'm like, you coach baseball. I've never played baseball in my life. Why do you care?
Get off my back.
Well, to kind of have our listeners kind of, because they don't know you, you were probably lifting more than everyone else in the.
Oh yeah, by far I was benching 300. I weighed probably 215, I guess. I was strapping, which which led to its own awkwardness because a lot of boys tried to compete with me in a lot of things, and I didn't get it because I lack so many things that boys seem to have, which makes more sense now to a lot of people. I'm like, why are you doing this? Why do you lose every time? Why do you keep trying to wrestle me or run faster than me or lift more than me? Why do you do it?
Why are you being such a dummy right now?
That's pretty much the male perspective of competition, competitive,
and girls are just you're being so dumb. Stop it.
Yeah.
What are you trying to prove?
Right. I'm just I just don't get why. I don't get why anything is like this. And again, not that not being into competition doesn't mean you're suddenly a girl if you're a boy, but just these sorts of things continue to add up over the years. In high school we lived at the end of a dead-end road that was just a step above being just plain gravel. So we didn't have super great internet, but basically every day after school I was sitting on the internet researching everything that I could find about gender stuff. Mostly I think looking for validation because, at the time, it's obviously much different now. At the time, I finally told my mother by dropping a pile of girls' clothes on her lap one day when she insisted on, asking me what was wrong and just wouldn't drop it. I'm like, here you go. I'm a girl. And she's like, what does that mean? Like, she's like,
how old were you when this happened?
17.
Oh, yeah.
She's like, she's like, oh, I feel like I did something wrong. Like, she tried to find examples of things that disproved it, all of that. And so was very dedicated to the concept of me being, this might be a new term, cisgender.
Cisgender?
Yeah.
Opposite of transgender, which is, you're probably cisgender. Andrew is cisgender.
The reason why she said that is
Andrew,
because I went by Andy.
Andy.
And so she knows me as Andy, so it's like we're both trying out different names today. So this is
right.
This is fun.
Andrew is probably cisgender, and it's actually just a term borrowed from chemistry, prefix meaning on the same side of, trans meaning across from. So transgender across from gender. I was supposed to be a boy according to the greater wide world, and it turns out that wasn't the case. So that's all that means. But that term does confuse a lot of people. They start freaking out about it. They're like, I don't know what a cis is. Why you guys call cishets? I'm like, it just means, cishet just means cisgender heterosexual, i.e. like 90% of the population.
So break that down for me. Cisgender heterosexual. So give me the I am and I date.
Oh, that part.
I need.
Hold on. Let's get into this a little bit later because I do want to follow up on that.
Okay,
a little
that's
bit.
I need to follow with very apples oranges sometime.
And for me, I'm a chronological person, so I want to stay back in 17-year-old self and history and stuff. So
yeah. So 17. Part of the thing was my mother, like I said, really dedicated to the concept of me being a cisgender heterosexual who got married at a young age and probably would have preferred that I start, popping out babies, or I guess I don't pop out babies, but that I would have, started building a family and so on. Very traditional like that. Everything that I've never wanted once in my life ever. So that was contention. But I started going to a counselor in high school that she sent me to. We couldn't afford the rest of the stuff, but that was covered by insurance. So I went there. At the end of our sessions, counselor's like, "I think you would be a great candidate for trans." I was like, "Okay." Then somehow I ended up dating a girl for 4 years, who was very much not okay with it, but also wouldn't let me break up with her. I went to Spain my senior year of college to try to break up with her, and she came with me. So I found
we all got a crazy in our life, in our history.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I got to go back again. Okay, so first of all, I never knew any of this in high school.
That was by design.
Well, I'm sure it was. Because, it was Adna. Come on.
Right.
Hicktown, just very unaccepting of anything that was different.
Yeah.
Where is Adna? California?
No, it's here.
Here?
It's
south.
Here. It's about a half an hour, about 45 minutes south and west of Olympia, I think.
Okay.
40-something people in our graduating class.
Very small.
Teeny tiny.
So our whole high school is not very big.
Yeah.
So everyone knew everyone, but everyone also knew everyone's business, which is why I feel like this is different. I'm kind of surprised you were able to keep the secret. So what kind of burden was that on you? Was it hard coming to school every day?
Yeah, it was a weird quasi, sort of contingent state on a lot of things. Some people knew, only girls knew because, the guys
And
don't always.
Girls don't keep secrets well, so how is that?
That's interesting. Seriously.
Did you have dirt on them? Because that's pretty much how my high school rolled. I won't say anything about you. You don't say anything about me because I know your shit and you know mine, and we just keep it like that.
No, they managed to keep that part. They did not keep quite the part about a boy from a neighboring town that I was very fond of, which came out within a matter of weeks. I was like, really? You
I wasn't popular, so I never heard any of this stuff. So this is not. You
were fine. No one was particularly popular. I mean, there weren't enough people to be like popular. Like there's 41 people. Like it's like,
yeah. You're just there,
right?
Altogether.
Everybody knew me. I didn't necessarily know everyone because between my older cousin being a football star and us being the only people who weren't, pale white within like a 50-mile radius.
I was going to say, what were the race diversity?
Me and my two cousins, and one of my cousins actually looks more like y'all than like me. So really,
y'all.
She said, no.
Y'all. Oh, yeah.
I won't say it.
Why?
But how do you say it, though? Like, because this is a very Southern vernacular kind of thing.
Y'all?
Well, she also went to school down south, so I feel like she would have heard it.
The New Orleans got a hold of you.
The Baton Rouge and the New Orleans, yes. I do say irregardless. As we say in South Louisiana, according to one of my professors.
Of it. You say fixin' to?
I don't say fixin' to, but the Texans I know say fixin' to.
I'm fixin' to go do that.
Mm-hmm.
Leave me alone.
I scored 100% on the Southern chick scale, something or other. Anyways, sorry.
Good, Andrew.
We're digressing again.
They look more like y'all.
So
one of them,
us white people
one of them
looked,
like he looked like he was probably full black. We're all only half black. One of them looked full black. One of them, me, looked like me, and one of them looked like y'all. So really, it was like two, for all intents and purposes, only two black-looking people in the almost the entire county, basically. So there was no maintaining a low profile. As much as I deplore my stature, it was convenient because I started wearing some of my girl clothes to school on the under the guise of just being quirky, Powerpuff Girl shirts, so on and so forth.
Do you remember that?
It's
you were a cheerleader.
Right.
Is that about the time?
Yeah.
But she's also very quirky. But I never really thought anything of it. I'm just like,
right.
She's just being weird. Because there's a lot of weirdos in our school too, so whatever.
So that worked.
Can I just ask about the cheerleader? Did you do the actual guys type of cheerleading or girls type of cheerleading? Because being a
both
male-female cheerleader.
She was strapping too, don't forget.
Yes,
right.
Were you hoisting girls up?
I was doing that, but I also did all the dance routines and so on and so
she's
forth.
Also she's on top of the pyramid too.
On top of the video, or on top of the pyramid? No. What?
Do you have videos?
I hope not.
It's been destroyed.
I think I actually do somewhere, but yes, I probably will destroy it as soon as I find it. Yes, so chronologically, yes. Next,
for Andrew's sake.
Sorry.
Or Andy's
for
sake.
Andrew's sake.
Andy.
One thing about before we go too far, Andrew, if you want to be more inclusive, y'all is better because you guys, guys can be only male. So if you say
guys,
y'all,
I say you all. I separate.
Wait, what?
You all.
Really?
Yeah, I won't put a little. I won't contract it or whatever.
You
put a little hyphen in.
So saying you guys, is that super offensive then?
I don't think so. I mean, it's become kind of more, especially in the north,
guys
most people say you guys.
To people, not just or gender.
Right, but technically, you think a guy is you wouldn't call one girl a guy and be like, I wouldn't call you oh hey guy here probably. So So it's slightly gendered language.
Although I do say dude to everything.
But y'all,
bro, come on.
Women? You say bro to women?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm also an ass.
So high school.
So the next 4 years were me at UW trying to find a way to even figure out what that necessarily means because there weren't a lot of resources at the time, so it's like, hey, when do I know that when I've transitioned? When reading in high school was a very medical concept, like, oh, you go meet with this person who will, like, a gatekeeper that you will have to prove your transness to if you want to go on to the next step. Like, it was very like,
are you enough to progress and pass go and collect your $200?
Right. Which was very discouraging. And sometimes I got the nerve to pursue those sorts of things, and sometimes I didn't. But perpetually hiding girl things from my girlfriend at the time when she was gone, my clothes when she was home, boy clothes.
She was coming and going at this point.
Right, okay. We have different schedules, and so so squeezing myself in when I could. Again, I tried to make her understand this was me and it wasn't going away, and if that wasn't something she wasn't, or that was something she wasn't okay with, that's perfectly fine, but then we shouldn't be together because neither of us are going to be happy. So she followed me to Spain. I managed to find her a new boyfriend over there, Jorge. As far as I know,
found her a new boyfriend.
Well done.
Here, I take this one. Go here.
Because then she'll have someone, because it seems she needs someone.
Of you, I'm going to break her heart, and she'll move on faster.
I try.
Good job. Next time when I want to break up with somebody, I'm like, I found someone for you.
The perfect person for you.
Look, it's not going to be so bad. You and I aren't going to hang out anymore. Here is this person that I have found for you.
It's clever.
I'm awesome. Thanks.
That's what I did. And that's actually part of why I went to law school down south. I was like, I will go somewhere where no one knows me. If no one knows me, no one can. You went to the
South, who is not forgiving.
Yeah, okay, I know. That was not necessarily...
Not only are we... And I say we as in Southerns, but not me, but racist, especially in some of those southern places.
However you mean.
Oh,
funny story about that. My first week on campus at LSU, I was going to law school there, but I lived on-campus apartment first year because I know how to find an apartment in Baton Rouge, just randomly. Pizza delivery guy, black. He comes, delivers my pizza, and my two roommates come out there, both white. One's from Lake Charles, one's from... Oh, God, I'm a bad roommate. He's from Texas. He has
That's good enough.
Right. And so, they come out, see them getting pizza, they go back in the rooms, and as soon as they're back in the rooms, driver's tone totally changes. He's like, okay, you're not from here. I can tell by the way you speak. He's like, yeah, no, I'm from Seattle. He's like, okay, what are you doing here? I'm like, I could to the LSU? Is this a trick question? I'm like, I'm on campus. He's like, okay, no. He's like, it's cool that you're here for your education and all, but get your degree and get out. And not, really? not in a, y'all need to not be around here, but save yourself, go, the new movie called Get Out. It was really save yourself, you crazy bastard. What are you doing here?
Why would you come here for
and, so
you
that was...
subject yourself to this.
Right. So that was terrifying. After he's gone, I asked he's telling me, just these stories of, stuff that happens in small town Louisiana. I was like, after he left, I called my roommates out. I'm like, okay, I know we haven't known each other for very long, but this thing just happened, and am I going to die?
Can you break that down for me, please?
Because I'm not willing to get shot for my degree.
Front yard.
Right. I'm like, okay, I know there's, I know there's been some Mississippi burning, but I thought, maybe in the 2000s we were maybe a little bit better than that. And they're like, I think you're okay. I think you're going to be okay. And I was. I had some friends who, very good friends, took very good care of me, also said some horrific things. I was like, wow, oh my.
Wait, so they took very good care of you and then said horrific things?
Great friends. So, it's sort of this, God, what's the word for it? I think sort of this cognitive dissonance where, a very good friend didn't have an issue with me, despite being black, very good friend. But those black people.
Oh, not this black person. Those black people.
Those black people and their awful blackety black. So it was a teaching experience.
So
it was a teaching experience is how I look at it.
I'm so glad we got that on the recording.
The blackety black.
So it was interesting. It was an experience. I mean, while we're saying all this, South bashing a little bit, I love it.
So you can do it.
Right. We're from there. I tell people I'm from Louisiana now. It vexes people, from up here. They're like, "No, you lived in Washington for the first 23 years of your life." I'm like, "I'm from Louisiana." They're like, I'm like, "Sorry, born and raised Baton Rouge, New Orleans, BR NOLA, baby, yeah." And they're like, so no, I totally claim it. I love it. I love my friends down there. I loved I had a blast.
So what kind of things were different, though, between your first 4 years of college here and then your law school down there, as far as the transitioning process? What were you were more free to do things down there?
More free. More free.
Crazy. Up here is just such a different, free to be you, do what you want. And everything is so very conservative, here are your compartments, and you fit in here.
Well, I think
God forbid you go anywhere outside of that.
Well, a couple things there. So one, my family moved out to the middle of nowhere, Adna, when I was young. So most of the people I knew up here were from down there. So even if, I was in Seattle, I was still surrounded by smaller town mindset. Also, I may have misrepresented the way Washington is to Louisiana. So whenever I did something super weird, they're like, "Oh, that's just how things are in Washington." That's just, and until they came up here for the LSU UW exhibition game in 2009, and they're like, "Wait a minute. Everybody up here looks normal. You're just really weird." I was like, "Crap, I've been found out."
Yep.
Yes, I am just super, super weird, you guys. I'm sorry I misled you. I told you there's an entire region of me, and there's not at all.
There's my population. My people are up there in this area that I've come from.
So I sold them on. That as an explanation for any weird stuff. My roommate. I'll try to be nice here. My roommate, second, third year.
They won't hear this podcast anyways. Say whatever you want.
My roommate, second, third year of law school, very, a nice dude, a good dude, but a lot of time listening to conservative materials, just blah, blah, blah. Adam Carolla says, boys should be boys and girls should be girls and all this weird gender mix. I'm like, oh, God, if you only knew, what you have in your own home. He went into my closet at one point, in which there was, of course, 70-25, girls' clothes to boys' clothes. And he's like, so I was like, yeah, that's my friend Nadine, my German friend who comes to us. I was like, yeah, she just left her stuff here last time. He's like, oh, okay. So that just so anything like that. At that point, I kind of still blew off, and the reason I did it is because I was not sure at the time. To become a lawyer, you have to pass the bar exam. To even be able to take the bar exam, you have to pass character fitness, bar admissions. They dig into your background. They go deep. And at the time, I didn't know if they were, because I think still at the time, gender stuff was still listed gender identity disorder, i.e. something, messed up with you that, I'm like, I don't know if they're going to look at this. And it turns out my fears weren't entirely unfounded, because there may be more who, aren't out, but that we know of, 2 blatantly, openly trans people come through LSU law. The last one was in the 80s, and she actually had to fight the Louisiana State Bar Association to be allowed to sit for the exam. They did not want to. They did not want to let her. I don't want to. I don't know her story super well, so I don't want to go too far into it. But from what I understand, she basically 3L year, just during one of the breaks, was just like, screw it. And started coming to class in a skirt, and that was that. And she's now a judge in California somewhere.
So has that changed? As far as the rules,
I'm fairly certain they have. Is I've changed my name and whatnot with Louisiana Bar and the Washington Bar without an issue. The only thing was in Washington, there were no assumptions about why I was changing my name. In the South, it was, okay, so what's your married name going to be? I was like, that's not why I'm changing my name. And they're like, wait. I'm like, yeah, I'm changing the first name. And they're like, okay. I'm like, yeah, it's going to be Cassandra. And they're like, oh, okay.
Oh.
So it is apparently not a thing now, as they have not come for my bar card to date. So I think it's fine. But at the time I didn't know, and I was like, I'm not going to put in 3 years of work and then just get brick walled.
No.
I've already waited as much as I've been chomping at the bit to start this process since I was 13, 17. I'm like, since I'm staying here, I'm not going to go through 3 years of law school just to not be admitted over this crap. I was like, I will wait slightly longer, and then once I'm admitted, it's much more difficult to disbar an attorney than it is to prevent them from becoming an attorney in the first place.
Kind of like Dennis.
Yeah.
Yeah, once you're in, you have to.
You have to really screw it up.
Right, you have to almost want to get disbarred. I mean, basically, as long as you're not stealing clients' money, or if you're misappropriating funds, that's a fantastic way to get disbarred immediately. Sure. But you can really mess up
that line, huh?
big professionally and personally, and still get rehabbed. But yeah, so I put it off kind of then, but I was at the time buying hormones online, which is not the safest thing to do, but when you don't feel like you have any other options. So a good portion of my student loans went to that, thousands upon thousands of dollars, to an online, overseas pharmacy, which hopefully it was the right thing. Hopefully I wasn't putting Lord knows what in anybody. You can't be certain. You can only when these things aren't allowed to be discussed out in the open, freely, the community has to figure out ways to try to do stuff for itself. So, you try to do research from other people who have, said that they've ordered stuff from here, had good success, it didn't kill me, so on and so forth. Not ideal, because there are risks with hormones, estrogen, vascular issues, deep vein thrombosis, I think is one of them. All this stuff, where now that I have, a proper doctor up here who can monitor that stuff, and, my kidneys start failing, or, anything else. I was actually hospitalized in law school for, freak vascular thing. Went to the Gulf of Mexico and was, bleeding out of my, everywhere, my entire body, basically.
From the hormones?
No, they don't know what it was.
Weird.
Yeah, it was unpleasant. I was in the hospital for a couple of weeks, but because of
the word that
unpleasant.
it wasn't that pleasant.
It was
shitty is what I would have thought.
Right. No, I mean it was pure hell. My cousins had to fly down and get me a pain pump, because I was just horrific pain. But I was going to, I was just going to skirt by that particular thing. But because of that, vascular issues, which, for other reasons I've been having issues with, still, like, ideally you would like to have a doctor, who, can adjust the dosage instead of, just be reading online like, well, this girl took 8 milligrams of estrogen, didn't die, like, let's go. It's a pain when you can't be out. It can cause lots of problems.
Scary.
But you do what you have to do when this is, when this is the thing that, you spend like 75% of your time thinking about each and every day. Not everybody is quite that, but for me, it's like, basically this is the driving force of, if you ask why I do most anything in my life, why I went to law school, money for transition, why I moved to Louisiana, transition piece, why, like, basically everything in my life has been because transition, because trans. And so, yeah.
So can I just ask, are you planning on going back to the girlfriend in college?
Yeah, I mean, because I was going to start talking about, like, how does personal relationships work and things like that.
I just more or less want to know, how often and how annoying do you find it to be compared to Bruce Jenner? Being in a relationship. I mean, is that not a parallel that people often make? Because what threw me is the fact that you were like having girls' clothes, guys' clothes, and like switching them back and forth and like hiding that.
Little Hannah Montana sort of.
Yeah,
situation,
Hannah Montana.
Right? Yeah, no. Well, first of all, you may offend a lot of people by still using Bruce because
and Caitlin.
Dead name.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Dead name.
Dead name. It sounds very ominous, but it's just using the
Caitlin,
the old name. So some trans people may get a little aggro if you use the B word.
So also, okay, then let's after that tackle the fact that because this is kind of it's not new, but we're becoming more aware. How much grace will you give us for
me
figuring it out? Getting it together.
Everyone's different. I think it depends on how far you go in the trans community, because there are some people who are like in cisgender oppression now, like trans liberation, like hardcore. Sure. And then there's other people who are super chill about it.
Right.
I grew up in an area where a neighboring town set on fire an effigy of my cousin.
What?
So my Winlock, Washington. Yes, y'all. It was because he was good at football, but they didn't burn anybody else who was good at football. So he was very good at football. They didn't care for that. Mm-hmm. So my standard for like human behavior is pretty low. Like if like you're not like threatening physical violence against me, I'm like, oh, you're pretty all right. Like, nice. Like, you're a great person. So personally,
what a low bar.
So personally on those things, like, I'm like,
humans.
If you're giving, a reasonable effort, like if you're not just being a complete jerk, great by me. Like, fantastic.
Which, by
like
the way, thank you, because that's been a big help for me.
Yeah.
To have someone to go to.
Right.
So I'm going to screw it up. I'm going to screw it up a lot.
That's cool.
And I need some space to figure it out.
People having a hard time to put it in their putting themselves in your shoes, and once you do it a few times, then you can kind of get it together. But that's white, black, tall, small, big, little, like all these different things where you just don't sometimes understand the words that are coming out of your mouth and how they might offend somebody. And if you're not doing it to be malicious, I think there should be a decent amount of grace. But then there also, I think, if you don't get it together, also, like, how many times do I have to say this? Like, call me Caitlin, not Bruce. Call me, like, right. Like, then it's just you not being very sensitive towards the situation.
I saw a post on Tumblr where one cisgender person was like, my trans friend got me this water bottle. reverse that. This trans person's like, my cisgender friend got me this water bottle, and it's like pronoun corrector, and so every time that they misgender me, I can just squirt them with the pronoun bottle until they start getting it right. So it's
put that wine back in this little bottle there, Michelle. She's dying. Michelle just choked on her wine.
Maybe I do want some of that wine.
Right.
So that would be. I wouldn't be that person's friend. I would have squirt somebody in the face all the time. I did almost choke on that wine.
So you can go a lot of different ways with it. I think most people, a lot of trans people, present company included, have lived in a lot of fear their entire lives. I mean, gosh, the first trans movie that I saw was Boys Don't Cry, which is literally about two guys, not just about, but in it, two guys find out this person's a trans man and beat her to death over it. So I'm like, terrifying.
Well, yeah.
So we live in a lot of fear, or fear of just ending up homeless, or fear of not being able to practice your profession. Like a lot of trans people, Caitlyn Jenner has quite a lot of money to the point where it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
She can do whatever in the world that she wants, and is fine. But for a lot of us, especially the younger you are, the less ability you have to make sure that things won't go very, very badly for you when you come out. If you try to be who you are, a lot of families kick their kids out, so on and so forth. There was a point to this, and I lost it. So if you...
It's okay. I have a different question about that, though.
Good.
So a lot of I feel like the problems that people come across when they are either ignorant or just maybe they are really truly being stupid, it's getting pronouns mixed up, getting verbiage mixed up. And okay, for one example, you and I had this conversation I think before. So you're dating girls. Were dating girls.
Was, yes.
Were. Okay. So here's the thing about that, and if we can edit this part out if you feel uncomfortable with this, and that's okay.
I know. Game on. Let's.
So here's the question: when a male has transitioned, is that what you say? Is that the correct term? Transitioned into being female, and then they still would like to date females. That is a thing. Yes or no?
Oh yeah. Two things
because I'm trying to people mix sex, like the actual relationship sides, with your personal identity.
Right.
Oh yeah, yes. That's why I asked earlier. Yeah.
Yes. I don't want to nitpick, but I do want to be as thorough as possible. So
this is
important.
So
I will say, and one point of this is the stuff is always evolving. So stuff that people said 5 years ago was fine. Today people are like, yeah, no, we don't do that anymore.
Sure.
One of those things is
which is
they're
so confusing.
Right. So they're getting away from the MTF, M2F, male to female, and just using trans. If it's a trans woman, it's a trans woman who is now transitioning, but she was always a trans woman, even when she was in the overalls and playing the football and so on.
Okay, so when you say it's a trans woman, it's transitioning
woman
to a woman, and then you say trans man,
from
female to man.
Right.
Okay.
So,
all right.
But it doesn't matter where they're on that journey. They were always a trans.
Right.
Male,
That's
trans
the fundamental
male.
point
Okay.
With it. But again, I won't.
Nitpick.
You're not in trouble. I'm just trying to inform everybody of where it sits.
If you're not in it and you don't have someone in your life every day and every 6 months, every year, you do use some very older terms. And even with pronouns, like even this weekend I've been working with dentists, and if I was a hygienist that was at my table, I was like, I don't know if I say he or she, not because I don't know what their gender is, because I don't know if it's a male or female doctor. And so now I still sometimes I'm like, well, is he still using this? And they're like, oh, well, she is. And I'm like, gosh, shit. And I'm in it every day, and so I'm still screwing it up, and I'm a female that's worked for a female dentist for 7 years, and I can't seem to, sometimes I slip up. We slip up. It just is.
It happens. Like, it totally, I mean, I try to think about it, like, you know, sometimes you call, like, my grandmother when trying to call for any one of her, like, you know, like 8 or 9 grandkids would often go through the entire roster before hitting the actual one, you know, like Mike, Casey, Katie, Ryan, Emily, Sarah, you know, and like 9 people later we get to Sam, like the only one who's in the house at the time. Like, so, you know, so I mean, like, things happen. Just try not to be a jerk is, like, I think the fundamental thing.
So you'll have to come on every year to update us on the rant.
Or anytime, just do a little segment.
Right.
So, FYI, there's this new thing.
So here,
sex, gender.
Oh yeah, sex, gender, yes.
Orientation, so on. Okay, totally different thing. So what you asked about, you know, transitioning, trans woman transitioning, dates women, lesbian. Trans woman is a woman,
and that's not
women.
I mean, it shouldn't, as I say it, it shouldn't be a derogatory term. They would be a lesbian, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
I know. I feel like sometimes people are like, I can't even say that they're gay. You know, like they're so shy, and it's a stupid thing.
Well, it's just almost like they're stepping in a wading pool of like.
Because they don't
there's
want to be
a lot
offensive.
Of things that they're not sure where they can touch.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm just going to sit here and fester in the I don't knows.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No. Totally fine. In fact, they'd probably be upset if you said anything else about the situation. Yeah.
Is it offensive to ask?
To ask.
Like, so what is your preference?
So let's bring this back to the dental setting because it's actually tied into like, okay, so we have someone who may or may not have marked on their medical history because they're supposed to fill out that form that they don't say anything about it. Like, how do we handle that situation of finding out? Do they prefer male pronouns, female pronouns? Like, they look like they could be either or trying to do it one way or another.
Right.
If it's not, readily obvious, I think the general accepted thing is you can ask because better to ask. Worst case scenario, as much as people don't care for it grammatically, the singular they is generally considered safe. You know, if I'm their gender, I might be like they're sitting right here. Some people are like, well, that means 2 or more people. I'm like, okay, well, can we have a pronoun that means third person, singular, neutral? Well, no, we can't do that because we can't have a new pronoun. Okay, well, there's a gap in the English language.
Exactly.
Can we name all the Urban Dictionary names that are out there that are like obnoxious?
All the
just we think of names all the time, new words,
new
things.
Oh, right.
Do this for the sake of
Yes, we can't. So, I feel like a lot of trans are like armchair linguists because you do end up saying like, oh well, like you used to be second person plural, now it's singular. Thou used to be second person singular, so we don't say thou anymore. Do you want to go back to saying thou, you guys? Okay, no, shut up then. So you end up learning.
Her education level is so far past.
I know. I'm like,
oh
sorry.
Can I?
We're hygienists. You're a lawyer. So
sorry.
If 8 years of school.
Language is kind of my
No,
it ends up being your thing. Well, I studied Spanish and philosophy in undergrad, and then law school. So language is kind of my shtick. If we're going to talk the science behind teeth, I would just sit here and be like, I don't know what you're talking about with the dentin and the
dentin and the enamel.
So I want to go to maybe words or phrases that need to be avoided, especially in dental setting, but in life.
I'm going to go ahead and throw that out there.
Calling them an it.
Yes.
I lost my shit on somebody on Facebook that said, I
would rage at, like, I'm generally I would rage about that. Like, I would scream and throw a hell of a tantrum.
That is called someone an it on this podcast, stop listening.
Wildly inappropriate. The next one is an obvious one. You sometimes see it on repair shop billboards, the T word. I'm trying to figure out if I should even say it or if I should treat it like the N word, is how, like tranny. Do not say tranny unless you want to piss off every trans person in the vicinity. And anybody who cares about them, like, very much a slur. Very, very, very much a slur. Less offensive, but still not ideal, transsexual. The reasoning behind that being kind of convoluted, essentially it's that it's associated with prostitution. Is the connotation. It used to be like the medically used term. It doesn't denote. There's nothing wrong with the denotation. It means transsexual, across from trans. Nothing intrinsically wrong with it, but the connotation is that was used to. It was used in such a fashion that's it's taken on a negative connotation.
Well, it's kind of like, even if you look at race, like, you've used the N-word to colored, to black, to African-American. Like,
right.
You're kind of progressing in that same kind of realm.
Personally, me and every black person I know have circled back to black. Just fun fact. If someone said African-American, I'm like, where are you from? Like,
well,
what are you doing, man?
Doctor just like, I'm not from Africa, I'm from Jamaica, so why would you?
Right, that's why, I mean, yeah, it depends on what you're using the term for. Like, if you're literally only talking about African Americans, then, you could use that term, but generally you're just talking about black people, like, when it comes up, so it's like, black person from U.S. Jamaica. That's a whole different. Right. That's a whole different issue. Oh gosh. So transsexual. For the record, I'm not saying I personally have any issue with sex work. I think it's a stupid. It's a stupid stigma. I don't care for it. So I'm not saying like wouldn't say transsexual because I think it's bad. It's just in the broader culture, it's avoided because it's taken on a negative connotation. Generally now, So trans or transgender, either one of those, you're pretty safe as far as I know, and I think you will be for the indefinite future.
Even just saying trans.
Yeah, like I say, I'm trans. I don't say I'm a trans woman because, my God, that's so much to say. Unless it's relevant, unless it's unless it comes up, just say, trans all day, trans, and it works. And I think, maybe we'll move to something else in the future. I don't know, but I think as far as I know, you're going to be safe if you just say trans or transgender. I think those are the big three. Again, it and tranny are horrific, and you're a monster.
I just don't understand how anybody could say it. Like, it just... Like, could you dehumanize somebody anymore and show absolutely no love or grace towards a person? Like, good Lord.
I'm not super surprised when people, when people do that sort of thing. So, but yes, it is horrific and awful, and please don't do it, anyone, ever.
That was nice of you to say, please don't do it ever.
Please don't do it.
What about like medications and stuff? You kind of alluded to estrogen as being, one of them. What other kind of medications should we be on the lookout? Because we do, again, it's comprehensive medical history is what we need. And then what kind of implications do you think that we need to be aware of, other than dry mouth? Dry mouth is a side effect of like every medication.
Drug.
Dentally speaking, would there be any other things that we need to know about?
And I just also preface this, that this is important, and once you learn this, because I'm sure there are some things to learn. Remember that post that somebody was saying, like, with Jasmine's upcoming seminar, that, like, I don't understand, I just treat every person in the same. It's like, well, you don't treat a 26-year-old the same as an 86-year-old.
Sure.
There's definitely differences, and I wouldn't treat somebody that's on lupus medications is the same as a healthy person. Like, so there's differences, and you need to understand them. So to think that you can just put somebody in your chair and just be like, they're all the same, I treat them the same, I'm just so kind and loving that I treat them all the same. Like, no, what we're saying is that there are some things that certain transgender people are going through, and medications is one of them.
Very, very insightful of you. Yes, I think
every now and again.
Yeah.
Right at this level.
Like, I get the sentiment of, it's the same with people who say, I don't see color. Okay, well, you may not see color, but I've had a lot of very bad things happen to me because I look the way I do. So when you say I don't see color, I'm like,
I see stupid.
Okay, well, that's silly because you obviously do, and, you're like, I get the sentiment, like, you're trying to say, like, treat people different, based on the code system, but, like, there are differences. The trick is to not arbitrarily treat people differently on those differences. Don't assume that because I'm black that I have a criminal record or those sorts of things. Don't assume.
So now that you're a woman, you're a terrible driver. I mean, that's just something.
How dare you? I'm a fantastic driver and remain such.
Like, I've always been a terrible driver.
But there are things, like, I honestly don't know if it's just in my head or if it's an actual thing, but since being on hormones consistently, I feel like I really have lost, like upper body strength and, like, manual dexterity, like, trying to open stuff. Like, I started giving stuff to my roommate to open. I'm like, I have to be able to open this. I'm like, this can't be, like, I mean, I still have muscle like this. So I'm like, I don't know if, like, I'm just thinking that I can't now, or if, like, I've actually, like, lost the, like, the strength to, like, I mean, it's not like every jar, but, like, there are, like, some that I'm just
Let's
like,
test. Let's go find some jars.
Go find a bunch of jars. And so that stereotype might be true, but it's not an arbitrary thing. It's like.
But that's interesting to know, though, because especially with the manual dexterity, when you're taking care of your teeth, like, that's kind of a big deal, like, in our community.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, dentally speaking, like, we always talk about, if you are capable of, if you have manual dexterity, here are the tools that you need to use. And if you don't, here are the replacements. I mean, that's almost the whole business model of what Michelle does is, getting people to use certain products based
Depending
on what they can
do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I might have used the wrong term with manual dexterity. Kind of. I meant more strength, not necessarily
but
it's all the same.
Okay. I just wasn't sure. I was like,
you can grip something.
Right.
I'm not saying you're clumsy now. I'm not saying that you, like, put your contact lens in, like, the wrong eye or anything like that.
Okay.
But also, I think, when what you're saying is, like, the genetic side, like, you don't see color. Well, okay, I don't see color in the sense that I'm not going to assume you have a criminal record, but I see color in the sense that genetically you might have something different. And so Asians, Latin populations, like, genetically sometimes we are just predisposed to certain things, and so you should see color. You should see the person in your chair. Maybe your behavior as a, again, human being doesn't change, but you as a clinician should put on that critical thinking cap and start using some of the education that you have from biology and genetics and even epigenetics and things like that. And now we have this kind of, like, other realm that we really have to start to think about. And it's really no different than hormone therapy with a menopause female. Like, you wouldn't treat them like a 26-year-old. So I think you're going to treat them all the same. I want to please put that on Facebook so I can yell at you.
Another, sorry, Andy, but this is
2 glasses in now officially, guys.
No, I kind of want some now. Sorry to get a anachronistic, atemporal for you, Andy. But circling back to one of those life events is I remember I probably would have been 15. I remember just sitting there for like an hour staring at my aunt's menopause medication and wondering, like, if something really bad would happen if I just, like, took it and, like, started taking them.
Is that the same, though? Is it the same?
it depends on what you're deficient in, and like what amounts and so on. I mean, basically, if you're trans woman, you're trying to up the estrogen and trying to lower the testosterone, and so you take usually estrogen, then you take an anti-androgen. I take spironolactone. What are you laughing at?
Nothing.
I take spironolactone. There's another one. I forget the name of it off the top of my head that they sometimes use, but I think like not as much. Usually they try to like stick to these two.
Mm-hmm. So, did you do any research about hormones?
Zero.
Okay, good.
No.
Wait,
we're super
in
prepared.
life, or?
No, like what you could be taking to be trans, and
No.
Okay, good. We're super prepared, hygienists.
We'll
do it for the intro.
I'm learning as much as I'm asking the questions. Which is why
I wonder,
is
that something that we could do as an internet search? Are the typical medications that you would take if you were becoming
for sure.
the transition man to woman? So then for our intro, maybe we'll be smart then and do it. Or maybe I could do it for story time with Michelle.
Or maybe you could do that, because that sounds
I think that's really a good idea, because
I know you probably would never need to listen to our podcast ever, but Michelle does this little segment. It's all about science, and she's basically reading a peer-reviewed journal on
super
air.
boring, unless you're a nerd.
It is.
Dental nerd.
Oh, so awesome.
So you guys were trying to downplay your stuff, and so you're over here being all geniuses in the science and whatnot.
Oh no, I mean one of us is, and then there's me.
He's a genius with the restorative stuff, and I'm like a nerd with the other stuff. I would not ever call myself a genius in any of it. I actually learned stuff about biofilm this week, and I was like, I didn't know that, and now I feel like I want a degree in it.
That's so stupid.
So,
I think I called you dumb when you said that too.
You did call me dumb.
Are you looking stuff up right now? Is that what we're waiting for?
I'm trying to find.
I'm trying to stall so you can.
No, I'm trying to find the site. Well, you're asking where to look online. I'm like, I'm a terrible trans because I don't have like a good site
you don't have a bookmark
on hand that would be
a terrible trans.
And so
that's going to be the title of this episode.
You are a terrible trans.
Michelle says,
I think
go by Cassie or Cassandra. Cassie?
I like Cassie.
What do you like?
I go by either. I usually do Cassandra. Oh, yeah, you wanted to get into the whole name thing too, didn't you? The only thing I don't do
over here, this Andy,
right?
Cassie, Cassandra, Andy.
But both Cassie and Cassandra fine. I feel like most people use Cassie unless they don't know me very well, and then they use Cassandra. I'm like, wow, that's fancy of you. I was like
French.
huh? Right.
What? I don't know. What's Cassandra like? It's
actually Greek. Which gets into the origin of that. But I think this is the site I'm thinking of. The first doctor who started prescribing me hormones in New Orleans sent me to it. It's transhealth.phsa.ca.
You could scale them and I could do story time.
And I believe this is a site. I'm fairly certain this was it. I hope I'm not wrong. Because if I'm wrong, I just gave you all a bunch of bad information. But there's definitely sites where this is available. College/government sites are good. Just try to make sure that you don't go into sites that are like trans people are evil and here's why, and here's why, because there's sites out there like that. They are convinced that we are literal demons, some of them, and I don't get it, because I'm actually pretty boring. I just kind of practice law and play video games, and
Sure.
yeah.
Well, I feel like that old adage of how do they say it? But the sentiment is you're it's mostly about the gay community. You hate the gays until you have a friend or a loved one that ends up being gay, and then you're like, oh, they are just normal, or they are just like me. That there's no real difference between the two. So that's kind of what I'm not an expert at by any means, but it's what I'm discovering. Is like we're just a little bit different. It's no different than you like video games. I abhor them. And there's no video game system in my house, and my poor kids. I have 3 kids, and they don't get to play any video games.
That's basically child abuse, Ian.
But right? That's all it is. It's like,
can I buy your kids a video game system? Sorry. Okay. I respect your lifestyle.
You know, like it's just a difference.
A little bit.
Okay, we're over an hour already.
Oh,
wow.
wow.
Okay.
Yeah, no, and I feel really bad because I don't want to cut you off, but I have two more things pressing that I want to talk about, and whatever Michelle wants to talk about. One, I do want to talk about the name of kind of like the work at Derivation or wherever it came from, but I also want to know: is there anything else that we need to know as dental professionals, as there is a trans person in the chair, that we need to be looking at, whether it's their dental health, like things that you've noticed that maybe are dentally different, things that you've heard anecdotally because maybe it hasn't happened to you. But let's talk about the name thing first.
Okay, name thing first. Let's see. Since I've gone through so many different names at one point or another before finally saying on Cassandra, which was kind of a relative to, I started with, okay, let's go chronologically for Andrew. Started with Dana and Minako in high school. Dana just liked it. Minako is the name of, if you've ever seen Sailor Moon, Sailor Venus is named Minako. I started watching that in high school. Liked the name, and so...
I feel like I knew that about you for some reason. It was like your email address or anything?
Ayako, which was another name. That was the one I was planning on going with, actually, for the longest time. But also Minako, which ended up being my middle name. So that's where I got that from. And yeah, that was just because I liked it. I've just gone to baby name sites and just download the entire thing and just started cutting out the names I didn't like. So I've had a name of a list of 30 or 40 names with relatively normal things, and then there's Calliope and Altessa and Wren and Raven and so
I'm a little bit jealous. I want to pick my own name.
It's great. It's fantastic.
My God, that's the name Michelle.
Michelle's a good
Brenda,
name. No.
I'll throw you over that back.
What's wrong with Brenda's?
That's her real name.
Huh?
It's my first name.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
my mother's name. I love my mother, but that's her. I'm not Michelle. I'm not Brenda. I'm Michelle.
She's her own person, Andrew.
No, I'm very, very aware of who she is.
Andy. Andy already is.
I'm
Cruel.
not him. I'm not nearly as cool as he is.
Yeah, I know.
Cruel. Sorry, I stress out if I leave my phone unlocked.
Oh, no, it's fine.
Even though I completely trust y'all, it's just a thing.
Michelle's closer and you don't really want to
I
trust her.
know. I was definitely looking at your
You
stuff
just
back
met
then.
her today.
Do you know, have you read a lot of the things, the fact that we are, as a society, so in need of our phones and the instant gratification of seeing something pop up on the screen?
Oh,
that
absolutely.
It doesn't matter. It's not that we're being nosy. It's that we need to be filled in that way. So if you get a message over me, I'm I'm going to look at it, not because I think that she's getting something that
But she's jealous of you.
I kind of is
And
like
on some
that.
level it is, yeah.
In some level. So even with friends that are if you were sitting here and your phone popped up, I'd be like, oh, you got a message. And I would possibly read the first little bit of it, but then it would kind of click that that's not okay. I should probably
She's nosy.
not be so nosy. But
I believe it.
But it's not in a sense of I want to know your business. Is that I want that tank filled with my technology.
Sure.
You just popped you had something and not me.
Right.
So sorry. Again, how many digressions is that? 5?
They're good digressions. They're
At
solid
least.
digressions.
At least.
Yeah. So I ended up with Cassandra. Kind of because I just needed to get the ball rolling. I ended up dating another girl who, in theory, was perfectly fine with my being trans, which is why I agreed to it anyways. In reality, she flipped over furniture when she got drunk, all the furniture in the house,
All of the furniture?
and kind of flipped out on me when I tried to. Who?
Teresa Giudice.
I don't know who that is.
Real Housewives.
Oh, I have
New
not
Jersey?
seen that.
It's my only one that I like to indulge in.
Nice.
Podcast going downhill fast, Michelle.
Seriously,
Sorry,
I have an
okay.
emoji that is flipping tables, and I call it my Teresa emoji.
Nice.
I'll send you a GIF after this.
Sweet.
I probably wouldn't be able to see it outside.
So she kind of freaked out, kind of did what she could to prevent me from starting hormone therapy yet again. And in the wake of that, I was like, yeah, I need to just do literally anything that I can to get this process started, because years are going by and people keep doing this thing to me, and I just need to I kind of completely dropped off the radar for a while, because I was like, I need to focus on this exclusively, because there will always be someone who has a vested interest in trying to prevent me from doing what I want, what will make me happy. So, as much as I'm a very social person normally, I was like, this seems to be the only way I can get this done. It's like, until I have these things sorted where I want them, I need to kind of quit living this sort of life where, people might come in who, sabotage my happiness, essentially. Mm-hmm. And so with that, Cassandra, there is a Greek myth where basically Apollo wants Cassandra. Cassandra spits in Apollo's face. Apollo curses Cassandra to be able to tell the future, but have no one ever believe her. And maybe it's slightly narcissistic of me, but I'm like, I feel like that happens a lot. I'm like, this is going to happen, and if you do this, this is going to happen, this. And, people around me are like, no, it's not. And then the thing happens. I'm like, I told you about this 6 months ago. So. I tried to prevent this from happening, and then it just happened. And, which didn't bother me that much before, but now that I'm a lawyer, the problem is they want me to fix the thing that has gone, that's been derailed for them.
So much money for being stupid.
I'm like, if you just done the thing, if you just considered the thing that I told you 6 months ago, you would not be in this legal catastrophe right now. So born a little bit of my frustration with that. It's called the Cassandra complex, or metaphor, or myth, so on and so forth. And middle name, Minako. Was going to go with that with the first name, but I kind of wanted a name that blended in, decidedly female name, but that kind of blended in so that it doesn't call attention to me every time I go, somewhere and be like, sure. Minako. And it's a Japanese name, so when Half Black, Half White Me comes out with the Japanese name, and, I feel like people will just be like, what the what is going on here? So, I'm like, Cassandra, it's like an average name. It's not super common, it's not, surely, there's lots of people, I know, a trillion Jessicas and so on, like Cassandra, I've only met, now two other. I'd only met one other before I changed it. Now two Cassandras, total of 3 Cassandras I've ever met. It's not a super common name, but it's not it's not going to draw attention to itself, sure. And so on. So, but I still really wanted Minako, so middle name, Minako. I changed my last name, too, just because I wanted to, kind of reboot the entire thing. I wanted to just be my own person. And I'm like, I'm already changing the first two. I might as well change, just the whole mess. So that one was given all of a week worth of thought. I was watching The Flash, and there's a character named Jesse Quick, and so I was online, I was on Twitter, and I changed my name to Cassie Quick. I was like, wait a minute, I like that. And so a week later, it was my legal name, and that is the whole story of that. So one name got almost 15 years worth of thought. One name got a couple years worth of thought, and one name was a week.
I was going to say, days. What was your second question?
About...
You had 2 left.
Dental.
Anything else?
Sitting in a chair.
Yeah.
Oh.
Is there anything that...
There's nothing that comes immediately to mind as far as that. I don't know if it's necessarily what you're looking for, but one thing I would suggest is that trans people are much more likely to have been in abusive relationships. And so if you're on the lookout for that sort of thing, you might be slightly more vigilant there, because Is
there anything else that they might like in their quest to be something that they in a physical body they're not, but they're growing up and seeing their friends have these transitions like bulimia or anorexia, things like that we would be.
Is it a higher proportion, you think, than other communities, or?
Yeah.
Pretty sure. I have been trying not to get too heavy here, but I have been this is my current this is like fluid from my whole vascular thing and all, getting my health back after having been in a super abusive relationship. All these things are slightly autobiographical. So used to people saying no to my being trans that I leapt at someone who said yes, and it turns out she all but tried to kill me. And so, but anyways, point being, I've definitely been trying to consume as few calories as possible since I was like 13. Trying to basically trying to lose the muscle mass that it turns out was probably never going to work until I started estrogen, enough testosterone in the body. I haven't worked out since I was 14, and I still have, fairly...
Raging biceps.
Raging biceps.
Strapping biceps.
And
Strapping biceps.
I've learned to just deal with it. The estrogen
work hard
over...
for that these days.
I know,
I get heavy and I can't get like that.
Lots of people are like, even girls are like, I would love to have like that. I'm like, I would love to give it to you. I would love to.
But that's how it always is.
Right.
People want kids, and I want to give them my ovaries.
Right.
I don't want them, so here, have my ovaries. But it doesn't work like that.
So no, definitely a thing. I was very, for the longest time, obsessed with, I'm not sure I can transition before I'm this size, because otherwise people look at me like, I'm a freak. And I think that's a fairly common thing. So I don't know the rates, and I can't say with
your body because you're trying to get somewhere
that your body doesn't naturally want to let you get. According to your body, you're supposed to, be,
right. Your
tall
genetics
and
play
big
a
and so
huge
on,
role
and
in it.
you're like, hey, body, you're doing the wrong thing. You need to change course. And it's like, no, we're not. And it's this perpetual. Some trans people are blessed. They're those lucky people who I've long envied. Are like born 110, 120 pounds. Like when they transition, it's like. You probably never might have known that they were like
framed anyway.
Like the sort of trans women who, some people are like, is that a woman? Before they even come out. I'm like, but I've gotten that, historically, people are like, is that?
Yes, historically with any gender, like even females, like I want to be that skinny, but your frame and things like that are just not going to get you there. And then you abuse your body. That's just I think, and I think that's the commonality that we can like really kind of latch onto, the fact that we all are doing the same struggles, going through the same strifes and problems and contention within our own minds sometimes.
So I'd say yes, you've hit on something there. So I don't know at what point it qualifies as anorexia, but I've definitely obsessed over and avoided eating, and also because my family tends to run overweight and didn't respect that it was sort of a reaction to my family being overweight, and they're fine with it, and that's fine, but I didn't want to be, so it's like a constant I put chocolate in your Christmas stocking. I've asked you for 6 years in a row now not to. I bought some soda. I hate soda. Just constant, and so I went to one extreme because my family's at the other extreme. If I tried to, any effort to even out inevitably ended up taking me where I didn't want to be. And so, like, it was just this...
Probably resonates with a lot of people.
Right.
A lot of people.
So, it's like I realized, it was unhealthy, not the ideal way to be, but I'm like, I don't know how else to accomplish, to stay where I want to be and all. And then I've been bulimic as well, but that's secondary to having been hospitalized in the stomach pain and the abusive relationship. I was very much trying to eat normally. That was not allowed. I've discussed this with Andrew, who's been comforting me when I'm certain that, my teeth are completely destroyed and look absolutely horrific. And he's like, they look okay. Like, you're okay. Like, you're okay.
This is normal. This
right.
is our normal.
If you're not happy with like X, Y, or Z, like we can change that. We can fix it. But like, you're fine as is. I promise. I'm like, okay, because my mouth looks funny now. It looks horrible. So yeah, no, those are definitely.
Which I think, okay, so that brings up a good point too. So if you have a patient that's sitting in the chair that's trans and has already battled these issues, I want to be this way, I want to look this way, I need to move into this kind of, I need to wear these clothes, and you're battling with that all the time, and then you add the smile, which is already an issue for so many of our patients. Like,
everyone anyways.
Right.
Yeah.
And so maybe just being a little sensitive towards that as well, and reassuring as far as the health side of things. But if there is a cosmetic side, as you would anybody,
sure.
like you would reassure them that can be fixed. Sadly, probably not without some cash.
Because you're
going
good.
Towards it,
yeah, and we've talked about that as well, Cassandra. There's going to be an investment. And with malnutrition, it's going to have an impact on your teeth, and that's just the way it unfortunately is. But there are options of getting you back to
right.
A place that you're comfortable with, so that you can smile and be happy with yourself. And I think that that's one of the reasons why we like being hygienists, is because we make people's smiles better, and then they get so much more confidence in who they are.
Yeah,
and
truly.
So
and I don't keep trying to bring this up to point out that the fact that there is such a vast difference between a transgendered person and a girl and a guy in your chair. Cisgender.
One more thing.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Transgender, not transgendered.
Transgender, not transgendered.
Well, that
no
just
past
might be
participle.
my
Okay, hold on. Let's
poor-
talk. Sorry, let's talk about that
poor vocabulary
honestly and
as it
openly,
is.
real quickly, because
What?
I kind of tell me the difference, because I don't know if I've already said it 1,000 times and I didn't mean to.
No, you haven't. And honestly, that one I don't fully. There is a logic behind it. I don't recall exactly what it
There's
is.
a finality to it, and it's kind of an ongoing process.
I think it's
right, because transgendered is past tense.
Transgender, right? Like I know it's the tense about. I think it's because it's supposed to be. I think it's supposed to be like an adjective. God, I honestly don't remember. I just know it's a thing.
Okay.
So if you look it up, I'm sure you'll.
How many people are going to hear that? Because my God, I probably say I mispronounce words and say words all the time. So how sensitive should we be about certain things that we're saying when I might say or spell even you are kind of wrong.
Right. No, I think that's a low priority one.
Right.
It's just it's just one of those things where I'm like, maybe I shouldn't even bring
it
up.
But I just want to know on the
it's down.
How shitty was I just been?
No, it's super low. It's like a thing that I'm sure there's
just the low end.
I'm sure there's plenty of trans people who are either unaware of that's a thing, or if they heard, they'd be like, I don't care.
Is it kind of what you would compare to now, like you're saying black versus African American?
Right, yeah. It's
there's a better way to
say it. I might look at someone a little weird if they, refer to me as an African American. I might be like, wow, that's fancy of you. But it's fine ultimately.
Okay.
It's not offensive. It's just, as a matter of high level trans, discourse in academia, it's not ideal.
Okay.
It's not like no one's going to want to punch someone who says transgender the way if you call someone an it, so you're it's
no, and I think and it's nice to hear these things, because it's something that like I speak the words, I don't even know I'm saying them, and in what tense I'm saying them sometimes. I think that's just me having zero brain to mouth filter most times. But the point of it was that it's not to bring up these differences and things that you might be going through because you are different, but because when you say I treat everyone the same, you can't. You can't. And it's not because they are different or weird or abnormal. It's because there is something in their life that is happening
distinct.
And that you need to be aware of this so that you can be a better clinician and treat that patient. It is no different than tailoring any kind of other treatment to a patient, right?
Right. No, absolutely. That's, from what I understand, I'm by no means a doctor, but an issue that's arising in medicine is medical research is typically geared toward the Andrews of America, the white male, like presumably straight. I don't want to make any presumably cisgender. I don't want to make any assumptions for you,
can we just define cisgender again?
Oh, right. Well, gender, but you get that idea. Cis, it just means on the same side of, and trans means across from.
Got it. So we are cisgendered.
So
we are cisgendered,
right? Because born with the girl.
Not nerd.
Sure.
You're just cisgender. No ED.
Because there's two of us.
Right.
All right, whatever. You can join that fourth or fifth class of wine you're having there, Brent. It's
basically, just think of it as like your brain and the rest of the whole system match up. I share some parts with Andrew, but the brain, all the rest of the stuff, we're more on the same page.
You are our podcast in one body.
Huh? Right.
Basically. Don't try and steal our podcast, though.
Yeah.
I won't.
Or our audience.
I'll try not to. I can't make any promises. So that's cisgender. It just means like your brain and everything, the rest of your body match up. Like it's what most people are. It's yeah. And then we were on about something, but I don't recall what it is now.
Well, I think it's okay. I think
because we've said a lot.
Lovely.
This has been a wonderful conversation, actually.
Yeah, I mean, and
it's been
here. So I guess here's my question: is I know you and I talked about you not representing the trans community in any way, shape, or form because that's not what you're trying to do here. You're doing a favor for a friend and just trying to help us understand.
Yes,
but if someone wanted to ask more questions, would you feel comfortable if they asked us and we just pass them on to you and you can answer to the best that you can? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think that'd be really helpful.
I give no warranty or indemnification of my answers. So if I give you an answer and you use it with a trans person and they scream at you, I'm sorry, I did the best I could.
Yeah,
such a lawyer speak right there.
But
that's lawyer
speak.
The
same thing.
Way to cover yourself on that.
Hygienist, if one hygienist tells one thing and the other hygienist is going to yell at them, it's just the nature of the beast.
But I have no problem with that. Oh, the other thing, while I'm thinking about it, do not ask trans people what's between their legs or if they've had the surgery. If it's your BFF or something or someone you're close to, my cousin, asked me if I was going to have the surgery and, I gave him an answer that I won't necessarily give y'all here. Generally speaking, if someone did that for me, it'd be like, shit, that's so bad. That's
So because the proper question. And I feel like
why do you need to know that though? I guess is my question.
I guess not really, other than being friends and being
because from a dental. Sorry if I'm talking.
Not from a dental side.
But it's really from a dental side or a medical side, We've already talked about medication. We've already talked about health history, all that kind of stuff.
Mean that
what does it matter what physical parts they have?
I'm not talking from a dental side. I'm talking about from a human being conversation side.
Yeah, but I don't ask what's between your legs, though. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't.
But I think it's more of like...
Sorry. I wish like
No. Go on with y'all.
I feel like I ask inappropriate questions all the time. I don't want to know, like... Girls have a lot of inappropriate conversations all the damn time.
There's a time and a place.
There are sex positions talked about on a routine basis. So I feel like there's not really an off limit sometimes, but there is an appropriate way to not offend somebody.
It's I think that's the difference between lewd and, which, I mean, I'll say, Andrew knows I will say some, some wild things from time to time. I have no issue there. It's a question more because kind of the history of it being an issue, of it being a fight, of it being something that people can be discriminated against. You can be fired, if someone finds out that, what's between your legs isn't what everybody else thought would be there. There's all that. There can be severe repercussions and ramifications if that information gets tossed. Some people don't care. Some people are like, hey, I have this, I have that. Like, I'm getting this, I'm getting that. I'm, going to like get it fine tuned. I'm going to get, like, like whatever. So ideally, unless, like if it comes up because like, if you have an orectomy, I believe is how you pronounce it, where they remove the testicles, that might be medically relevant when you're prescribing estrogen. If there's nothing there producing testosterone, you can lower the dose of estrogen. So if it's medically relevant, or super relevant in some way, ask. Otherwise, casual conversation. You just met a trans person. Don't be like, hey, so what's going on?
Kind of conversation.
Right. That right there. They may choose to tell you at some point. They may choose to tell you day one, or, they may choose to tell you 5 years on. If you can live comfortably without the information, probably don't ask. If they want you to know, they will tell you.
Sounds solid.
And that's all I have. Okay.
Let's finish it, and then I got a question after.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks, Cassandra, for being here and taking the time. Because apparently Michelle wants to stop this podcast, so she can ask you an inappropriate question.
No, actually, I think you should keep recording. I want to know about the bathroom situation. Your thoughts on it?
My thoughts on it. God, which part? Well, first of all, there's so many thoughts. One.
Can I just tell you right now that if there's any law passed right now, I'm screwed because I go in men's bathrooms all the time.
Right, it happens, and it's not there's a lot of high-minded theory that wouldn't have occurred to me behind this, such as it is a play by people who don't want us to exist, period. If people can't go out and use public restrooms, it makes it much harder to engage in daily life if they can't use restroom at work without it being an issue. So, the theory some people have is that, it's around the... It's an roundabout way. You can't openly discriminate against people. I mean, in some states you can, but generally speaking, you can't nearly as easily discriminate against people as easily as you once could. And so by controlling it in this way, where you say, oh, well, what if some guy puts on a skirt and goes around and, starts touching people in the bathroom, like, which isn't a thing that really happens. Like, one, trans women don't do that, and two, like, cis guys don't even really do that.
Pedophilia does not equal transgender.
Huh? Right, like, and that's the association that they're trying to make. Like, they try to make us out to be freaks who are preying on, anyone we can get our hands on. Apparently, we mess around with their men, and we shouldn't be, and that upsets them. But we're also in the bathrooms harassing the women while we're, perverting your men. But we're also screwing up your kids, and so they just desperately.
Yeah, they're busy, aren't you?
Right. Apparently, I didn't know
that. How do you hold down a full-time job? That's what I want to know when you're out there wreaking havoc on the world.
I guess it's a Batman situation. Like, one thing during the way, and then the rest of the, until 4 a.m., we are just destroying society any way we know how. I don't even get the mindset, so I don't know where they're coming from with the behavior, with with the thing, but that seems to be what fundamentally drives it. Is like they don't like us doing any of the things that we do they're perfectly legal and totally fine. So it's like this is a way that they can. I mean, it's the same thing as they've done with, minorities. Like, I mean, at one point it was always, black men are, all like hopped up on cocaine and like, sexually assaulting all the white women. Like, and that's why we need the Ku Klux Klan. Like, this has been a thing that has been done before. Like,
to a lot of different areas. Yes.
So it's just a new version of that. I think it's ridiculous. I'm now on, to demonstrate how ridiculous it is, they've had trans men, full beard, like, looking more masculine than I ever have in my entire life, like hang out in women's restrooms, be like, do you guys really want me in here? Like, you can see like the women in the background who are like horrified because, like the guy's just in there just, like taking pictures of himself, in his full beard and like, is this, would you like me here? Would you like me in the bathroom with the rest of the men? Like, and then, or trans women be like, hey, like, look at this, look at this woman. Do you really want her in the bathroom with the dudes? Because she looks like a woman, y'all. Like, not that, you should have to be passing to use a proper bathroom, but it's like, this is what you're, this is what you're.
Funny, like, loitering is loitering. Criminal activity is criminal. Criminals are going to do criminal stuff. So, where do you think you've been going to the bathroom for years?
Trans people have been using the restroom without an issue. Like, the thing is, people think they can always tell who's trans and who's not. Like, I have,
It's the one time that a born woman, and they say that you're transgender. Like, are you kidding?
They've done that to.
They've done it multiple times.
They've done it to cisgender women. Like, they harass them because they think they look trans, and like, actually, no, this is.
You're like, well, thank you, asshole. like, now I'm going to go be bulimic and have all these other psychological issues. Thanks.
So it's just so like, much. So they're ridiculous. They've invented a problem in their head that they're like crusading against, but the problem doesn't exist. There was a thing recently. Her name is Kelly something. She was attacked in a bathroom here in Seattle. And there's a group that's trying to take away. Kelly Heron is her name. There's a group that's trying to take away the rights of trans people to use proper bathroom in Washington. I won't give them.
Is Kelly trans?
No, she's cisgender. What happened was there was a sex offender, like a guy who was in the bathroom that she was using when she was out running. She fought him off, like clawed him up and whatnot. And this other group was saying like, well, see, that's proof we can't have trans people in the bathroom. Like, he was a homeless sex offender. Like, he was going to do that. Like, he wasn't in there.
Criminal does criminal activity. I don't care what sign you have on the bathroom.
Right. Like, he wasn't. If that law, like, if they repealed all this and took away the protections that Washington has, being the lovely state that it is, granted, it wouldn't have made any difference. The exact same thing still would have happened because, like, he wasn't supposed to be just in there hanging out, like sleeping or whatever he was doing, like lying in wait. Like,
it doesn't mean that we don't have cars
on the road. So the fact that like a random cisgender male like decided to hide out in the women's bathroom has nothing to do with trans people as much as they desperately want to make it so. That's my thoughts on that.
Some great
should
thoughts.
Get rid of all.
Wow.
I'm just saying.
Okay. All right.
You can edit that out.
All right. Thanks, listeners. This has been a great episode. Thanks, Cassandra. Talk to you guys next week.
Bye.